Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. The show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am thrilled to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 89 of Rewire to Inspire. Before I dive into today's content, I just have to say a massive, massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in, for sharing the show, for just being so amazing. My downloads have been through the roof lately. I'm not sure what has shifted, what has been different, but I just have to say what I'm doing and my passion behind it couldn't be possible without each and every one of you taking the time to tune in. So from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that it does not go without recognizing. And I know that I listen to lots of podcasts and it can just seem like, we're just clicking on it because we enjoy it or we find value, or I hope you find value anyways. But oftentimes we forget the significance that that has on the one that is doing the work behind it, doing the work behind the scenes. So thank you so much. And I truly just look forward to continuing to go on another year together, continue to think of content, and just through my experiences and through hearing from you guys and through coaching sessions, I'm just so excited to continue to share my learnings with you all so that we can continue to grow together, because I truly do believe we are on this journey together. If you are tuning in, we are in some way connected, and I think that that's so beautiful. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm so happy to have you here and so excited to be diving into episode number 89. So today's episode is going to be a piggyback off of last week's episode, so number 87, that was all about, will more self-awareness give you more grit? And for today, I want to talk about how we can raise our self-awareness and really the importance of that. And this is coming from a therapeutic perspective as well as just my own personal experiences of things that I have found helpful to raise our self-awareness. And one thing that I realized I didn't do in my last episode, which was a huge mess up, was really explaining the definition of what self-awareness is. And I want you to just take a moment to think about that word, being self-aware, what that means. And I Googled the definition because I was sitting here and it was pretty on par with what Google said the definition was. So basically it's conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. But it was that word in the beginning, you're consciously aware of it, meaning that it's not happening out of impulse. It's not happening out of a survival mechanism. It's your way of being that you are aware of. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing, because for today's episode, how to raise your own self-awareness, I want us to recognize that that needs to come from a place of being aware. That needs to come from a place of being in our consciousness, being in our grounded state, being in our bodies. Because when we are not in our bodies and we are operating, we are not truly ourselves, because we're operating out of a state of protectiveness, a state of survival, a state of fight, flight, or freeze, right? So I really am excited to dive into today's content, and I truly hope you guys all enjoy. So without further ado, let's chat about how to raise your self-awareness. So becoming self-aware can help you to not only reach your goals in life, but also to discover who you are at the core level and what you want out of life. Getting to know yourself can be a very scary thing. It can be a very uncertain thing, especially if we have trauma, that we've suppressed. We have experiences we've suppressed. We have things about ourselves that we don't like. If we have a toxic relationship with self-awareness can actually be a very scary and overwhelming journey. So I definitely encourage you through all of this to be gentle with yourself. A part of self-awareness is just recognizing that something is too much and validating that for yourself. that in and of itself is going to raise your self-awareness because you're beginning to connect your mind and body together and becoming more hyper aware of yourself. However, the more that you get to know your true self from a safe perspective, the more you will discover what lies underneath. Self-awareness and self-improvement really do go hand in hand, which is what I went deep on last Monday in my episode about will self-awareness give you more grit? So, that question to contemplate is, why would you take action, or why would you put in the work, or why would you do something if you didn't have the belief to know it's possible? And it's hard to have the belief to know that it's possible if you aren't self-aware of what your beliefs are, of what your core values are, your core aspirations, right? It can be very easy to get stuck in a place. And I think we often get stuck because in some way, shape, or form, our self-awareness is maybe lower than we realized. And I'm realizing even more and more recently how much more I'm becoming self-aware on a day-to-day basis, but that through that, I'm also uncovering pieces of me that I have suppressed for so long. And now that I'm allowing those to come out, I'm just excelling even further. So becoming self-aware can be a scary and overwhelming experience in the beginning, as mentioned, but it can also be a very beautiful one because you get to know who you are at the core and the true you. So as always, I always like to give prefaces to my episodes and kind of a little bit of structure. So that's a little bit about, what self-awareness is. Then there's always a why beneath it. Why are you sharing this with us? Why should we want to know this? Why should I care? You might be listening. Why is this not taught in school if it's so important? Why is this the first time I'm maybe hearing this if this is so important? So the reason in which you should want to know and want to be more self-aware is becoming more self-aware can help you understand your wants, your needs, your desires, as well as your strengths and weaknesses. So it can really just give you a full compass perspective of who you are. And oftentimes what happens, and I had a huge moment for myself even this morning, I was on my Facebook and I was scrolling through old photos. And some of the photos that was coming up, I was just with certain groups of people and certain people that used to be in my life. And I just felt so icky and just weird. And the reason that I think that came up is because Jessie at that time was not very self-aware. And I was allowing those people in my life to manipulate how I viewed myself, to determine what my needs were, to determine what my wants were. They set the tone for what I was good at, what I was bad at, and just I allowed everybody else to label me, and I held on to that so good. And I think that anytime that happens, it's because we don't have a good relationship with ourselves. And it's hard to have self-awareness unless we work on our relationship with ourselves, because we're going to get a lot of feedback, and we have to be willing to take that feedback from self and be able to work through it. But if we don't really have those tools to work through it, we can become stuck. And so that is the first reason of why becoming more self-aware is so important, is because it allows you to identify those needs and desires and strengths and weaknesses from your own perspective, not from somebody else's bias or projection onto you. Self-awareness is also an important tool for success. Those internal mental processes guide how you behave and how you act. Think about that. This is the same thing. If we're acting off of impulse or out of how somebody else thinks we should behave or how we should act, we're really stepping away from our true self. And the more that we do that, it's almost like we become stuck in that space. We lose touch with ourselves. And whenever we lose touch with ourselves, it can be really, really challenging to be self-aware, because maybe being self-aware and in your body isn't what's working, and maybe you're finding success or you're happy with allowing everybody else to determine their version of you. But self-awareness is huge because it allows us to take our uniqueness and amplify that. That is how the law of attraction will work in our favor. That is how manifestation will work in our favor, is because we're going with what's in tune with our heart and our soul, and not what society tries to push onto us or tell us that we should or shouldn't be. And last but not least, why it's so important to become self-aware is when you become more self-aware, you begin to uncover those destructive thought patterns and unhealthy habits. Again, looking at those photos, massive pain, massive just embarrassment, because I didn't recognize that person. And I was holding onto so many toxic thought patterns, so many unhealthy habits, just looking back at those pictures, I just see a Jessie and a version of me that was so disconnected from self, had no self-love, no self-respect, very stuck, very much on autopilot, willing to do anything and everything to just get validation from those around me, despite them being very toxic people in my life, even though I didn't really recognize that at the time. But the more self-aware that we become, the more that we're able to notice those self-destructive thoughts happening, the more that we're able to recognize our unhealthy habits and say, hey, this isn't truly me. Like, this makes me feel this type of way. Someone who is not self-aware would not be able to say how something truly makes them feel. We have to have that connection with our heart and with our true internal self. And I do just want to say, before I dive into some techniques, this takes time. Like, becoming self-aware is an infinite journey and something that we have to work towards every single day. It's something we have to bring awareness to every single day. Am I following my beliefs? Am I following my passions? Am I living in my values? Do I have proper boundaries? Am I speaking my truth? Am I staying in my lane? Right? So this is a continuous journey, and it's one that can take a lot of work in the beginning, and it might take getting a therapist or a counselor, a mental health professional in the beginning to build that safety with yourself. Because oftentimes when we become unaware of self, it's because we've had to pull that ripcord before. We've had to dissociate before. We've had to protect ourselves before. And so rebuilding that bond with yourself is going to take time, and it can be a very overwhelming process. And the reason that I'm expressing this so much is because I don't want to just say, go become more self-aware. It's easy. It's not an easy process. And in fact, so many of us aren't, because it's easier to not be. It's easier to just go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing than to tune in with yourself and get to know the true you. So again, prior to diving into some techniques, just give yourself that validation for a minute, that you might not have even realized you weren't very self-aware prior to my episodes, prior to this topic and hearing about this. So check in with yourself and see where you're at and how you're feeling about that journey. But next, I am going to dive into some techniques that you can do. And these are some techniques that I used to do with my clients, especially after they had undergone very traumatic experiences in their lives. And one of the main things that happens when we undergo trauma is our brain pulls that ripcord, right? It pulls the ripcord between our conscious mind, which is our prefrontal cortex, and our body. And when that happens, when things happen, we're acting out of impulse. We're acting out of trying to protect ourselves. Have I seen this before? Have I heard this before? Have I experienced this before? Have I sensed this before? Has this meant danger before? And when that happens, it all happens subconsciously, and it happens so fast that we might not even realize we're disconnected. I've been realizing more and more how much I have been disconnected from my body. And I've been incorporating yoga into my life again. It had faded away for a little bit, and that is my first one in my techniques, is yoga. You are focusing on your breath work. You are focusing on being in your body. You become hyper-focused on, are my toes pointed in the right way? Are my hands pointed in the right direction? Is my head in the right direction? You have to become hyper-aware of your surroundings. And so it's almost forced me in a way to come back to my body in a safe way. And so yoga is a really great thing that I used to suggest to my clients, but that I've also found immense healing through doing. And there are so many books about healing through healing through yoga, through like after you've experienced trauma. And there's so many trauma-informed yoga practices and things out there that we can do, because it allows our body and mind to get on the same page. And that truly, to me, is what living a self-aware life is. It's being in your body and being safe. And I will just note that you will never fully be in your body 100% all the time, every day, the rest of your life. Our body isn't designed for that. If it was, we wouldn't be prepared for things to happen. We wouldn't be hyper alert when we're driving to see if there's pedestrians around, to see if there's a car veering in our lane, to, sense if there's danger around us. It's actually a very good thing that we're hyper aware of things and that we disconnect sometimes, because that's what protects us. But we have to ask ourselves, are we living too much in that protected state? The next technique that you can do is mindfulness meditation. Every time I say the word meditation, it either lands for people or they're like, yeah, get out of here with your woo-woo-ness. Like, I'm not doing that. And so again, through all of these, like pick one that you think sounds the most likely that you'll do and then build from there. But mindfulness meditation is honestly also one that has changed my life. And in the beginning, I thought it was a bunch of hocus pocus. I didn't understand it. I read the book Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and basically that was the main thing that was shared when he went to become a monk was meditation and the power that just stems from our brain and just sitting and noticing. Again, if that is too overwhelming in the beginning, seek professional support to guide you on that journey to help you feel safe. But if you've gotten to a safe place that you feel comfortable enough to go into your own body, listening to those meditations on YouTube, Googling them, embodiment meditation, self-aware meditation, and like just continuing to practice breath work, connecting to your breath, coming into your body as you close your eyes. Bring awareness to the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet, getting comfortable being in your body, noticing what that feels like. It only takes 30 seconds a day of mindfulness practices to begin to rewire our brain to feel safe in itself. Like that's so interesting that we can rewire our brain to feel safe in its own orbit. Our brain in and of itself is what makes us feel this way, and we have the power to overstep our thoughts, which is something that I don't think a lot of us realize, and it's such a beautiful thing. So meditation is a huge one. Off of that, breath work. Breath work is huge. It takes 6 intentional deep inhales and exhales to reset our nervous system and to come back to our body. We can literally do that while we're driving. We can do that while we're working. We can do that while we're watching TV. We can do that while we're talking to a friend. Taking 6 intentional deep belly breaths is such a good way that we can just bring back our conscious mind back online, turn our amygdala off, get our heart rate reset, get our digestion back online, get our full cardiac rhythms back online, get our sensories back online, and continue about our day. Again, the more that we can make that connection, get our thinking brain back online, that is becoming self-aware. That is turning on that thinking part of our brain. And we're forcing that to happen through taking deep breaths. The next one is grounding to self or the earth. So right now I'm sitting in my chair. One thing that I would practice with my clients is, do you feel the chair beneath you? Do you feel it supporting you? Notice that chair. Notice what it's doing for you. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? Certain activities like that allow us to just, bring awareness, and even just feeling the chair and saying, it's cold, feels like leather, like it's forcing my brain to think and to come online. And we don't realize how much when we do that, it's connecting us back online. And I don't think we realize how disconnected we've become. So these things can sound really, really silly, but exercises like that are so, so helpful, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're going with the motions and everything's just becoming too much. Pause. What are 5 things you can see? What are 4 things you can hear? What are 3 things you can smell? What are 2 things you can touch and 1 thing you can taste? Go through that for yourself and just notice how you feel. The next one is to seek a coach or a therapist who is ahead of you. Finding someone who's ahead of you to help you heal on your journey is one of honestly the best things that we can do, because we have that safe person. Community is huge when it comes to healing, and having someone that you have that trust with is one of our main desires as humans, to have that sense of trust, seen, and community. The next one is to journal daily. Get those thoughts that you have roaming through your head nonstop onto paper, writing out your gratitude, writing out how you're feeling, rating your day 0 to 10, writing how you're feeling 0 to 10, just allowing your mind to escape for a minute and get it out of your body and into the physical world. I have 2 left for you guys. The next one is get to know your values. Getting to know my values was probably the most life-changing thing of 2022, because now I'm able to realize that whenever I'm not living in alignment with my values, no wonder I feel out of flow. No wonder I feel icky. No wonder I feel off. No wonder I feel out of place. So getting to know your values is amazing, because whenever we start to feel that way, we can make sure we circle back and make sure that we live in that area as much as possible. One of my biggest core values is ambition. It's getting to work, it's doing the things, it's being curious, it's putting your head down and trying to better yourself. And so whenever I'm around persons, places, things, or ideas who don't value ambition, no wonder my soul and my heart don't feel appreciated and seen. But when I get around people that do, I'm like, and I can just grow that much more. So becoming aware of your values allows you to also recognize the things that are no longer in alignment for you, and allows you that permission and awareness to shift so you can get around the right people. That will also help you excel your life. And the last thing is one that you're already doing. Read or listen to podcasts of things that you enjoy. And this also goes off of our values, things that, allow you to feel seen and heard and validated and appreciated. So reading and podcasts is a really, really great one. So those are some techniques. You now have the why behind becoming self-aware is so important. You have some techniques to help you with that. And last but not least, I have some questions that I encourage you guys to ask yourself. And I'm going to quickly read off these questions. I encourage you to take them time to write them down on paper, to maybe listen to some soft music, and to answer these questions for yourself. So the first question that I have for you guys, what does the best version of you look like? What does that version of you look like? And again, oftentimes when we hear these questions, we sit there and we're like, I have no idea. And that's okay. That shows that maybe starting with the techniques is a great place to start. Not being able to answer these questions actually is an answer in and of itself of where you're at with self-awareness. So that is my first question. What does the best version of you look like? My second question, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? What is it that whenever you do it, you just love it? You just find it the greatest thing in the world. What are you passionate about? Number 3, what do you wish you knew more on? This is like a huge question to ask ourselves, especially if we're trying to find our purpose or our passion. What do you wish you knew more of in life? What's that one subject or thing that you're like, I really want to learn more about that thing, just because it interests me. Anytime we have an interest or a pull or a desire or curiosity about something, that's a pretty key indicator from our higher self, from our internal us saying, hey, something there. We like that. Let's discover that and see what happens. That happened with me with mental health. And now here we are. I was so curious about it. How does the brain work? How does the body work? How does trauma affect the brain and the body? Right? What happens here? And I became so curious and I wanted to learn. And now here we are. So who's to say that's not the thing for you? So that is a huge question. What do you wish you knew more on? Number 4, what are the most important things in your life? This one, we can get miscued and kind of tell ourselves a false answer. So take the time and truly ask yourself, what are the things that are most important in your life? What makes you feel the best you? What makes you feel the most safe, the most embodied, the most appreciated? What are the most important things in your life? And my last and final question for you all, what goals do you want to accomplish? What footprints do you want to leave on this earth? What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to be your legacy? What do you want to be what people remember you by? What goals do you want to accomplish? So I truly hope you guys enjoyed those questions. I hope you enjoyed those techniques. I hope you're sitting there going, I have no idea where I'm at with myself. Because that's actually a beautiful thing. To not know shows curiosity, and through curiosity, we have 2 choices. We can get curious and want to find out the answer and do the work, or we can revert and we can run away and we can turtle shell and we can stay the same. The whole point of this episode is for you to contemplate, do I need to become more self-aware? The answer for all of us is yes. No matter where we are at this journey, it's a constant journey because things are always trying to manipulate us, right? Technology, society, things we see, control, status, all those things are always like messing with our subconscious of how we feel about self and our relationship with ourself. So taking the time to answer these questions, practicing these techniques every single day. You don't just do these techniques for 2 months and then you've mastered them and you're done. These techniques are to be used for your lifetime to keep that connection going, keep that conversation going, because again, it's an infinite journey. So right now, I encourage you to notice your surroundings. Come back to your body. What do you see right now? How are you feeling right now? What do you smell right now? What can you hear right now? Very, very quick questions that you can ask yourself to come back to your body, to check in and to see how you are. So thank you guys so much as always. I hope you're having the best Tuesday ever, if that is when you are listening to today's episode. Regardless when you are listening, I hope you're having an amazing day. All my love. Again, as always, I'm plugging in at the end of all my episodes. I am offering free 30-minute calls to jump on Zoom. I have my link down below in the show notes. Basically, the aim of this is to just connect to my listeners, hear where you're coming from, hear your story. I'm in the process of becoming a coach. My goal is to help as many people as possible to just find their passion, find their purpose, improve their mental health, get past that trauma or those things that are blocking you from stepping into that version of you that I know is within you, because we all have it. So thank you guys so much as always. All the love. I look forward to chatting with you all Thursday. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.